Hello, everyone, and welcome to Marvel-ous Movie Mondays. We've done this intro 3 times because my computer just decided it didn't want us to podcast today. So I will be podcasting and recording from the comforts of my cell phone. So thank you, Kelsey, for bearing with me, and thank you all of you watching for bearing with me. If there's any audio issues, video issues, blame me. Kelsey, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. I'm pretty stoked today. I'm
Okay.
getting the vaccine, so
Oh, that's amazing.
I
That's
have that
great.
to
You're,
look
you're getting
forward
it.
to.
When are you getting the vaccine?
10:30 a.m.
Oh, so
baby.
like right after this. Okay, so we're gonna keep
Yeah.
this short. We're gonna keep this podcast a little trimmed compared to some of our others because I'm working off a phone and hopefully I'll get my computer back up and running so I can hop on that later. If not, this is what we're working with. 2, Kelsey get the vaccine right after this podcast, and 3, it's just one of those episodes where like lots of good stuff happened, but we don't have as much to talk about, so it's okay. So Kelsey, let's go right into it. What's your Marvel news of the week? Because we do news every week. What's your Marvel news?
My Marvel news of the week. Another cast member has been spotted in
Okay,
Australia
for Thor.
and for Thor Love and Thunder.
Okay.
Another actor that I love and adore, Mr. Jeff Goldblum. So we can expect the
Okay.
Grand Master making an appearance in Thor Love and Thunder. Super exciting.
How big of an appearance do we think he's gonna have? Do we think it's gonna be as big as his last one, or do we think it's gonna be like a little tease, like a little one-liner type thing?
I don't know. I don't think you fly Jeff Goldblum all the way out to Australia just for him to have one line. You know,
True.
I think at least like a whole scene,
All right,
you
there we go.
know?
Yeah. So my news is a little sadder. Black Widow has been pushed again.
Oh
So
yeah.
it is
Yep,
no
yep, yep.
longer going to keep its release date. I'm pulling up the article now. It is now going to be in theaters on July 9th, which I believe is a month and a half. I think it was supposed to be mid-May. It's going to be July 9th. Why the excited expression, Kelsey? That's later.
Well, I'm not excited that it's been pushed again, but that date is significant in the Swiftie universe. If you're a big Taylor Swift
Tell me about
fan,
it. Tell me about it.
she
I am
referenced
not as much as you.
she references July 9th in her song Last Kiss off of her album Speak Now.
Okay.
She says that July 9th. So July 9th for the Swifties is National Last Kiss Day. So
So
if it ends up actually being July 9th and it doesn't get pushed again, I'll have two things to celebrate that day.
I was gonna say, Kelsey, if you're too busy with the Swift power, you can go on July 8th at midnight probably, and say you saw it the night before. Probably. I
Are
mean,
we
I don't
gonna
know
go
how.
together, Dill? Be honest with me.
Let's go together. Yeah. Let's
Obviously,
let's
we're gonna have to, I
We're
feel.
going to be vaccinated. We're going to be safe and comfortable. We're going to be ready for a new Marvel movie on the big screen. But there is a caveat to this bit of news, and that is that it will also be debuting with premiere access on Disney Plus, which I know we talked a few weeks about.
Mm.
Like that was kind of what we feared with this movie. We didn't want it to happen, but it looks like it's going to happen, and it looks like you're gonna have to pay $30 if you want to watch on Disney Plus. Which, if you have a family of 5 or 6 and you guys aren't vaccinated, that's a good option because 6, that's like $5 a ticket. That's a steal. But at the same time, you're not getting the theatrical experience. If you're just one
Mhm.
or two people, $30 is a lot for one person to pay for a movie for themselves. So I will not be paying that for myself. I will instead be paying the normal movie price and seeing it in the theater. But if you cannot get to a theater safely and comfortably, I understand. You have the option to watch on Disney Plus. I know it's a win lose. There's a lot of merits to it being on Disney Plus. There's a lot of demerits. So that's the news this week. Kelsey, what do you think of all that?
You know, I totally get releasing it on Disney Plus, and I
Mm-hmm.
totally think that it just won't be the same if you don't do it in a big comfy chair on the big screen. But,
Right.
you know, we got to do what we got to do to stay safe and healthy and happy. So,
Yeah. I mean, hey, we're podcasting from a phone, minutes
that we
before a
are.
vaccination. So we're doing what we can do.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's dive right into it. Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 2. We're kind of on a little bit of a speed episode this time, but it's okay. Sometimes you have a shorter car ride. This is perfect for that short car ride. If you want to put us on the car, we're not going to take up an hour of your time. We're going to be
Yeah.
swift and we're going to be swift. Huh?
Hey, there it is.
Huh?
There she is. She
All right,
snakes
Kels.
her way into every aspect of my life. So, this
Um,
is the title of episode 2, The Star Spangled Man.
and we know who that's talking about, and that is the new Cap. Might as well
I
call it New Cap. Kelsey, just right off the bat, before we get into the episode itself, thoughts on the new Cap? What are your thoughts, John
I
Walker? Tell
I
me.
hate him. I hate him. I hate every second he's on the screen. I'm so annoyed with it wouldn't he I I'm not just saying I hate him just because, like, he's not Steve. Like, no one's
Right.
ever gonna be Steve. No one's ever gonna be Chris Evans. Like, there's you just can't replace that. And that's not even why I hate him. His personality is also trash. So that's why. It's like they didn't even try to make him likable enough for us to be like, "Okay, I get it." No,
I
he's
disagree.
he's trash.
I
Okay?
disagree. I
Why?
think that the first few scenes where he's like talking about, how he wants to really take the job seriously, it did make me kind of at least understand that like he is understanding that these are big shoes to fill. Granted, he's not the most likable guy, and we by the end of the episode, I'm completely like, yeah, no, get off my screen. But I do think there's something about that opening scene of seeing him get those jitters where it's like, yeah, like imagine having to step into that role and you didn't ask for it. The government just gave it to you. Don't blame. It's like almost like the shoot the messenger thing. Like, don't shoot the messenger. He's just the guy who has to wear the suit. What he does later in the episode, which we'll get to, is different. But I honestly, I don't like him, but I'm also understanding of the nature of the job and how he's going about it. So I have a little bit of respect for him in that sense. I do think they did a better job than going the cliche route of making him some maniacal villain. He is a douche, but at the same time, he's not. He doesn't have ill intentions, which I think is good. I mean, you might disagree. It seems like, um,
Listen, I just well, let's dive into it, okay? So
yeah.
scene
Let's get
1,
right into it.
we start off, we
What's
meet
your little blurb? What's your little blurb?
oh my goodness, I didn't write one.
Oh well, do you want me to try one? I could try one.
I've been off my game, I'm so sorry, I've been working
Okay, yeah,
so much.
I'll
Do
try
you
one.
wanna give it a shot, Dill, give it a
I'm
go.
doing one on the whim. These are my improv skills. This is 4 years of
Alright.
theater right now. Um,
Let's see that degree at work, baby. I wanna see that
all right,
MT
all right.
degree.
Sam and Bucky reunite when the shield comes into the hands of the Cap that they did not foresee holding the shield. There is there is discovery of some evil super soldiers. Who is behind them? And are there other super soldiers that have been hidden this whole time? We found out this episode. that
Hey, I
was
loved
close,
it. That was pretty good off the
It was almost
cuff.
like a tease. It was almost like a tease for the episode, not like a summary. It was like a
Yeah,
like a
teaser
special
trailer
preview.
almost you gave us.
Yeah, there you go.
Hey, that was pretty
That's
good.
yeah, secret. See it, super soldiers out in the forefront, bad super soldiers, but then there might be some that have been in hiding that we learned about.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, baby.
oh, and then at the end we get our Hannibal Lecter moment.
Oh,
We'll get
I
there, but yeah, we'll get there. We'll get
honestly
there.
we'll get there.
If you
So
haven't seen our villains ranking, go look because Kelsey has some thoughts on Zemo. All
oh,
right,
yeah.
Kelsey, take us through the episode.
So scene 1, we start with John Walker, as we later find out what his name is. He's ramping himself up, preparing himself for his big interview for Good Morning America in his high school's locker room where he once was a football player there. So he's admiring his locker. His girlfriend slash wife slash fiance comes in and is there to just give him a pep talk. She leaves. His friend um comes in to also give him a pep talk to, prepare him for him taking this mantle of being the next Captain America. And we find out that he's only been the new Captain America for 2 weeks. He says,
Hmm.
2 weeks ago, we were in Chile together. And now, cut to us here, you're about to be on Good Morning America. Like, our lives have changed. And this was pointed out to me by a TikToker not too long ago. But why does every Marvel superhero get a black best friend? John Walker is not an exception, I found out. Like, as soon as he walked in, I was like, he gets one too? This is wow. The
Yeah, I think it's almost. We'll talk about it later. This episode
Mhm,
does dive into a lot of the race problems, not just in the MCU, but in this universe as a
mhm.
superhero. Later. I mean, I'm jumping a little bit, but this episode is already kind of crazy with the way I'm filming it on my phone. So I'm gonna jump all over the place. I don't care.
We're going
Um,
rogue.
uh, we're going rogue like Felicity Jones. So yeah, I think if when you see Sam's line about like always like the sidekick line, how Walker says the line about like you being Cap's sidekick or whatever. that's kind of what these characters have been dismissed to is, the
Mm,
sidekick, Falcon,
mm,
War Machine, all these characters who should just be, Avengers. They should just
mhm.
be Avengers. Like, why is it the sidekick to Iron Man? No, you're an Avenger just as much as Iron Man or just as much as Cap. So I definitely agree with what you're saying. I think I even have personally, I'll take ownership for it now. Like, I've always referred to, Sam and Bucky as the two sidekicks because to me, that's what they were. But I think when, in this universe, on his own, he's no one's sidekick. And that's almost disrespectful of people to just plug him as a sidekick even when he's on his own. Because this series is Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's not Cap, Falcon, and the Winter Soldier. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I do think that was an important line that Sam said later in the episode that I think does kind of refer to what you were saying about how John Walker in comes his black best friend as the sidekick, and it's
Yeah.
this trope. It's this trope that we see a lot of the person of color being the sidekick. Spider-Man, same thing. Ned.
Yeah.
So it's Doctor Strange before he turned bad, Mordo, and Wong too.
Yeah.
Two sidekicks. It's a problem, and it's not a problem in the sense that like you know superheroes need sidekicks, but it's a pattern that we see over and over again, which then makes it a problem when you start noticing it as a pattern. And that's why Black Panther was such a breakthrough because it was the first time we were seeing a black superhero at the forefront as
Yeah.
the star, which we haven't seen much at all in this MCU and only a little bit elsewhere with Blade and you know very few examples. So I agree with you there. There's a lot of frustration there.
Yeah, it definitely makes me excited for Sam's journey into discovering, you
hmm
know, him becoming his own hero in a way, like, because he's not gonna be overshadowed by Cap anymore, and he's not for sure gonna be Bucky's sidekick, he's going to grow into his own, um, hero, which is
hmm
exciting.
And a lot of my qualms with the first episode was that I felt like they were still being treated as sidekicks because it was
Mm,
still all about Steve. The whole episode was about Steve, kind of how I felt with Homecoming, with the whole movie being about Iron Man, really, and
right.
Far From Home being about Iron Man. So honestly, I like this episode more because I feel like we finally just got to see them do their thing. They went
Mhm.
off on their own. There's obviously the stuff with Steve and of course with John Walker, but now like John Walker's the thing they've got to face, not just the absence of Steve, it's now the presence of something else. There is at least a new presence there. Whereas in the last episode, it was just an absence. And I think having the absence take the precedence is just not working for me in the
Sure.
MCU. So I definitely think this was an improvement on the first episode. I don't know how you feel, but this was for me an improvement because we started to see Sam and Bucky more as leading characters, getting their own stuff to do and not making everything about Cap. As much as we love Cap and we love Chris Evans and we love Steve, it's not his show. It's not.
Mhm.
And people are saying, well, it's Cap's show. That's not the name of the show. Like I get it. Like he's this presence in a sense, but all at the same time, I came here to see Falcon and Winter Soldier, and they finally, I think, delivered on that this week. And I think with that action sequence, I was really like, okay, good. Like it's them. So Kelsey, I've been talking too long, so go ahead. Keep
So
going.
then as the intro plays, we hear a kind of marching band version of Cap's theme song.
hmm
And we see John Walker. I will never refer to him as New Cap, by the way. He will only be John Walker in my eyes because I refuse to accept this.
That's
So
fair.
John Walker runs out onto a football field. He's signing autographs. He's hamming it up for the crowd. He's doing this. The fact alone that he's doing an interview for Good Morning America is, uh, a statement within itself. Sorry, I lost my
Right.
words there.
That's
It's a
okay.
statement
Sorry, I
within
was clicking
itself
away on my.
because
I have another mini laptop here that I'm like looking at notes for with my cell phone. I'm sorry, I'm making noise. Go ahead.
no, it's okay. Um, Because I literally wrote this down. I'm like, he is the show pony Captain America that Steve never wanted to be. He is the monkey on the unicycle that Steve was drawing in the first event in the first Avenger. That's not what Cap ever wanted to do with the mantle of being Captain America.
Right.
He never even said that he wanted to kill and he wanted to fight. He said, I don't like bullies. He's God, I miss him. He's just like, there will never be another Cap. ever
Right.
like him ever again. And this
Hmm.
John, and so I disagree with you with what you were saying before, because you were like, at least, he's like trying and whatever, but he's doing it in an incorrect way. Everything that he thinks he's doing that he should be is not what he should be doing. He's
Hmm.
like, "Well, I'm doing the interviews and I'm shaking hands with people and I'm going to these meetings." I'm like, "Yeah, but that's not what the job is." And it
But at the
clearly, if
same
you don't
time, he
get
doesn't
that,
know that. Yeah,
yeah,
he
but
doesn't know that.
fine.
I'm
Keep
no.
playing devil's advocate over there, you coward. Say it like it is, Dill. This guy sucks.
uh, proceed.
Thank you. So then, and I did a deep dive into John Walker that I'll get into later because he kind of ties into other characters that I stumbled upon the
Hmm.
way, and they
Yeah.
they kind of go into theories that I may have about the
Hmm.
show. I know how we feel about fan theories, though, so I'll keep them,
Yeah.
very short and realistic. Um, Bucky cut to Bucky watching the report, which causes him to, not the report. He's watching, Good Morning America. He's watching the interview. I will say though that these are the things that we learn about John Walker. These are his credentials. He's has 3 medals of honor, which are apparently very hard to achieve, I imagine, in the military world.
Right.
He ran missions in counterterrorism and hostage rescue, and the government did a study on his body at MIT, which, as we know, is the college that Tony graduated from when he was 17 or 18. I cannot remember. And he like tested like miraculously in like speed, intelligence, strength. So he pretty much is um the super soldier type of person that Cap was without receiving the serum. So then we notice that Bucky's been watching this news report. He is just flabbergasted. I almost started crying when I saw the look on his face.
Yeah.
And so he goes and he confronts Sam. So Bucky confronts Sam, and Sam says, he's like, listen, I did what I did. There's no going back now. I can't just tell America that I've changed my mind. I have bigger fish to fry anyway.
Right.
And Bucky's like, well, then I'm going to come with you. And Sam's like, well, I don't even know what I'm dealing with. It might be a part of the big three, which he describes as aliens, androids, and wizards. And they kind of bicker about that a little bit. It's kind of like our
I
one
thought that banter
comedic.
was. Yeah, I thought that banter was a lot of fun.
No, I
The
did
whole
too.
Doctor Strange is a wizard. Oh, but he's just yeah, a sorcerer, but a wizard without a hat. I
Yeah,
thought that
yeah,
was all
yeah.
very funny.
It was definitely a fun, like, lighthearted. I feel like that was really, like, the only, like, comedic moment that we got in this episode. I just thought that it was, like, came at a really weird time just because, like, I'm I
That's
don't know
fair.
about you, but in terms of, like, Team Sam, Team Bucky, I'm Team Bucky, man. I would be so mad if Sam gave away that shield. I mean, as the
Yeah.
episode progresses, we kind of gather a more understanding about why Sam gave away the shield. And we know that, it has a lot to do with race and all those undertones. So I understand why he did what he did more
Yeah.
than I did in the first episode. But coming from Bucky, like if you look at it from his standpoint, like growing up with Steve, joining the army with Steve, like you know, being forced into the future with Steve as 100-year-old men, like that would just break my heart too if I
Hmm.
were in Bucky's shoes as well.
Yeah.
Do you have
But
anything
part of
to
part
add,
of me
Dill?
part of me almost wonders like why didn't Cap take Bucky with him? To go back and live life out.
That's what I said. Episode 1.
And
Steve
it's one of those.
abandoned
Yeah.
Bucky to go live out his fairy tale dream with
Because
Peggy.
yeah, I think part of the reason why he gives the shield to Sam over Bucky is because Sam is this next generation. Sam, Bucky's already had so much life experience and had he's trying to pass the mantle to someone new, but at the same time it's like, well, Bucky's still there though. Like Bucky still has to like live in this new world as this 100-year-old man in a 20-30-year-old's body. Yeah, so yeah, there was definitely I can see the tension there, and I can see why Bucky. I don't even think Bucky needed the shield. I don't think he wanted it necessarily,
Mhm.
but I do think he didn't want it to be where it is now, and I think that's where in the case where it's like I should have just gotten it anyway. But
Sure.
I think he was on board with Sam doing it because he's even the one who tells Sam, "Why don't you go ahead and talk to him in Endgame?" So
Yeah.
like I think he fully knew like, oh, it's Sam's turn, but at the same time, to see him just then throw it away, it's like, what you doing, man? But I get it.
No,
Like I
yeah.
get it. Yeah, I get why Sam did it now. But of course, I would take Bucky's side in that argument too, because I'm like, well, look where it is now. Look whose hands it's in now.
Exactly. So
Yeah,
then
Kelsey,
they
you go ahead real quick. I actually think I have this computer up and running, so I'm going to try to switch over off my phone. I will minimize myself in case I need to bounce on back here. But keep talking away. I can still hear you. I'm just going to transition over.
Okay. So then they travel to Munich together to go track down the flag smashers that Sam and Lieutenant Torres have been looking into since episode 1. And an interesting moment in the plane scene, Bucky tells Sam not to call him Bucky. He goes, Steve knew me longer. You don't deserve that. You don't deserve, you're not that at that status yet to call me by my nickname, which I thought was interesting because every time John Walker called Bucky Bucky, a part of me died. I'll be completely honest. It just came out of his mouth so incorrectly. I feel like they wrote it the amount of times he called him Bucky throughout the episode. I feel like they did that on purpose just to really get under our skin and to just feel so gross. I just thought it was so like icky and slimy and I didn't like it at all. And that's honestly, I feel like that is definitely like 80% of the reason why I dislike John Walker is the audacity this man had calling Bucky, his childhood nickname from Steve, the OG Captain America. I won't get emotional. It's not the time. Not the place or the time. So then they're sneaking around what looks like an abandoned warehouse. They're obviously not working well together. They have very two different mindsets. Bucky's just used to being a one-man operation going in and breaking down walls and being, 1 on 5
Kelsey,
tearing up the place.
did I make it into the stream?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay, cool. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, everything works. Everything's glorious. I love it. Okay, cool. Proceed. I heard all of that, by the way, and yes, I agree. The nickname thing, yeah, I get it all. Yep.
Thank you. So then as Bucky's sneaking around, well, Sam stops Bucky and says, "We're not assassins," which I thought was a little insensitive of a comment because Bucky's trying his best to not be what he once was with which was an assassin. And I thought that I didn't really like that joke. I didn't really
Whose
like
joke was
that
that?
one.
Whose joke was that again?
Sam said that to Bucky. He was like, "Well,
Right.
let's just go in there." And he was like, "Whoa, we're not assassins." And he did it even with like a smirk and everything. And I was just like, I think it's too soon to make that joke,
Gotcha.
maybe. And then he's like sneaking around, and Sam makes another joke where he's like, "Wow, all that time you spent in Wakanda, you're almost like White Panther now." To which Bucky makes a reference to what he was called in the Black Panther end credit scene, where they referred to him as the White Wolf, or maybe they probably called that they probably called him that actually in Black Panther, not just the end credit scene,
It
but
was I can't remember. I think it was the
because
end
like
credit
the
scene. I
little
don't know.
kids are like by his
Right.
hut, and then
Hmm.
Shuri comes and is like, "Are you bothering the White Wolf?" or
Yeah.
something, and yeah, so that was just like a little nod to his nickname from Black Panther. And then they realize that there might be a hostage in the truck, so they go after them. They then we have this whole truck fight sequence, which was honestly for me very underwhelming.
Oh, see, I felt the opposite. I loved it.
Okay.
I think it's because um, hold on. Let me just plug in my Ethernet just so we don't lose it again. Yeah, I thought it was interesting because we really got to see what the arm is all about. Because I feel like Bucky's always kind of just been the guy with the gun, but I feel like
Okay.
now we actually got to see him like use his arm, and we got to see the weight of his arm and like how
Sure.
his arm actually came into battle. I also like Falcon. Like in the first episode, it was just Falcon flying around in the sky, but like now it's cool seeing him like flying under the cars and around the cars, and I did like it, and I did like seeing that like John Walker was, fighting also and trying to be like Cap in that fight, and just seeing the difference in how well Steve managed that shield and how poorly Walker handled his, because I think, when he's throwing that shield around, I was like, oh, okay, he knows how to use it. But then at the end, you're like, yeah, no, he really doesn't. Um,
Right.
so
I mean, those I get what you're saying, Dale. Those elements of the fight were cooler. I think I was just waiting for Bucky to get better at fighting. Like, he's a trained assassin. Was it only because he was like brainwashed that he was like so good at like fighting and hand-to-hand combat? Because I was, I was like, dude, it used to be you and then five other dudes. You should be able to
right,
take down all these, I get that they're super soldiers, but I'm like, you should be able to. He was like restrained by two guys for most of the time. I was like, you should be able to take down those guys, no problem. I don't know.
right.
I was just waiting for him to
Well,
get,
also,
you know, a little better, I think.
the there we find out they are super soldiers. So he's a super soldier going up against. I mean, they're probably not as trained as he is, but they have kind of the same stuff that Bucky has in him. And I think that was also one of the things I liked about the fight is the whole time the fight is happening, you're realizing just how powerful these villains are, and they're just guys with hoods and
Right.
masks. But then as the fight progresses, you're like, oh, okay, like these guys aren't to be messed with, and like they're actual threats.
I
And I
thought that
love
was
that when like the villain is unassuming, and then you later like realize their power just in a single fight. I love when that's the way you show off their power.
sure.
Is progressively. Yeah. So I dug the fight, but again, the fights are very Marvel. It's very what we're used to. This is kind of formulaic. I mean, it was an interesting set piece, but at the same time, it's not the Doctor Strange fight where everything's interweaving amongst itself. It's not as innovative as like that. So I get it. It wasn't as exciting, but I enjoyed it.
So we find out that the flag smashers are actually stealing what looks like medical supplies, vaccines, things like that, because they're taking it to they're hijacking it, taking it to their like refugee camps where they have followers and supporters of the flag smashers. Um, I literally wrote down in my notes, Bucky should have fought better. Um, also, the main girl who we thought was a hostage turns out to be just another flag smasher. She
It's a
breaks
cool reveal.
Red Wing. She breaks Red
Yeah.
Wing just like in half. And Bucky's like, I
And it's
always
funny
wanted
because
to do that.
he's not really a character, but at the same time,
He's
you're
not a
like,
character, but I was like, that I feel like that was way too early to get rid of Red Wing. This is interesting.
I mean, also
Um,
this is an MCU where they can literally build anything with anything. So
I mean, that's very fair. That's very true.
we brought Vision back. We can bring a Red Wing back.
True. John Walker and Lamar Hoskins joins the fight just like out of nowhere, and we find out later it's because they were tracking Red Wing, and that's how they knew where Bucky and Sam were. And we have this epic moment where John is thrown around the shield, and mid, ricochet back to him, Bucky catches it. He gets his hand on it, and you can see it in his face, like, "Oh, I should just take this right now." But then he quickly like throws it back to him because he knows that
Right.
just like would not go over well. And they really get their asses beat. I didn't understand. I know, they tend to lose quite often before they win. Their streak with like winning battles is like, not that great if you really think about it. But they were taking a lot of hits and they didn't end up winning this one. So then we cut to this really fun car ride scene where Sam and Bucky are walking back to the airplane that they came onto, and who drives by none other than John Walker and Lamar Hoskins. It's so weird that his last name isn't Hopkins. It's so close to Hopkins. Just make it Hopkins. Um, they drive by, they're like, "Come on, guys, like, let us give you a ride. Like, we get that you don't wanna, be associated with us or whatever, but, it's a 4-mile walk to the airport. Just, like, hop in." So then we learn quite a little bit about, his friend Lamar, who goes by Battlestar. So I looked into Battlestar in my handy dandy Marvel encyclopedia, and we'll talk about him later because he goes into my
Okay.
notes that I took
Right.
about John Walker. So basically,
Cool.
during this scene, they're kind of just trying to get a feel for one another. They're talking about, where they're going to go from here, how they plan on stopping these people. And It's when Lamar refers to himself as Battlestar, that is when Bucky has just had enough. He
Right.
can't take it anymore. He yells, "Stop the car." And I totally understand his animosity. I would not
Right.
be wanting to sit in a car ride with either of these two anyway. Like, and even Lamar says at some point, he's like, "I have a lot of respect for you two, but like, you're going to need our help," or like something like that. And I'm like, but you're not acting like you have a lot of respect for them. And
Right.
they were crucial. Actually, no, that's a lie. I was about to say they were very crucial in getting half the universe back, but that's such a lie. They were both very much gone into dust. Um,
But in they battled against Thanos. They did after
they
that when they got
did.
back.
They
So that could
did.
have, if Thanos got his gauntlet back, he could have just wiped him out again. So technically,
That is very true. So then, the last line that does it for Sam is the sideline or sidekick line you were talking about earlier, Dill, and that's when
yeah.
he's just like, "All right, I've had enough of this as well. I'm out of here." We cut to scene 8 where we find out where the Flag Smashers ended up, and it seems like this refugee camp where the man who's greeting them, makes it clear to us, the audience, that like these people have followers and they have supporters, and their movement and their message is kind of like really taking off because they just don't want the world going back to what it was 5 years ago with,
Hmm.
you know, for purposes of just like America, like 4 people being more rich than the rest of the country, just like owning more money. Like I would never want to just be blipped back into a world where,
Right.
Jeff Bezos is a trillionaire or whatever he is now, and there's people that can't afford meals every day,
Right.
you
It's
know?
it's the Robin Hood thing. It's and they call her that. It's
Yeah.
Robin Hood. It's the steal from the rich, give to the poor. Which honestly I think brings a lot of humanity to that character too. Um, her character, which the name escapes me right now, but she, you know,
Oh,
that
I'll tell
group.
you.
Yeah, tell me right now, just so I can use it in
So her name is Carly. Hold
Carly.
on. Hold on. Pause. Hold for applause. Carly Mojenthaw,
Yeah.
which is the
So
female version of the man I brought to your attention, Carl Mojenthaw, who runs the Flag Smashers in the
there you go.
comics. So
All right,
they
cool.
gender bent this character and made it a
Very cool.
female.
Very cool. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting way of, because right now she's being portrayed as a villain, but we could see that maybe she's really not. Um, but I think it's interesting. We talked in our villains ranking all about like bringing some sort of humanity and understanding to the motive, and we definitely get it here. I think it
Mhm.
was a very clear, blatant motive that she was, the Robin Hood thing, which
Right.
made me instantly, intrigued by her character for sure.
So the two most important things that we see in this scene that we gathered from this scene is not only, well, I guess three, one being her identity as Carly Mojenthaw. I don't think that's how you say her name at all, but I'm gonna run with it. If you know the comics and you know what that character is all about. The
Let us
fact
know in the comments.
Yes, exactly. The fact that she gets a text message that says, "You took what was mine. I'm going to find you and kill you." So
Mm,
obviously, we have someone who isn't the biggest fan of the Flag Smashers, and that they have a big plan for tomorrow because she says, "Once tomorrow happens, there's no turning back. So I need to know that
mhm,
you're committed." So I guess we'll find out what that is in the next episode. And we also
right.
hear that their little chant is "One world, one people." That's their message, I guess. And one thing that I didn't notice in the first episode that I noticed in this one, Dill, did you notice that in the handprint, the world, the only continent you can see is Africa?
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I wonder why that is and if that's important.
Maybe we'll find that out in a future episode. There, we've only got 4 left, so
It sounds like I'm teasing an answer to that question. I really don't know.
yeah, no,
I'm
I
genuinely
don't either.
asking. Okay.
I have no idea.
I didn't want you to think that I had like a follow
No,
up to
it's
that.
okay. No.
Okay, so then we cut back to Sam and Bucky on their way home from Munich, and Bucky says, "Let's take the shield." And in this moment, Sam's like, "Well, do you remember last time we just took it? You and I ended up being, uh, war criminals." And Sharon, he name drops Sharon Carter and says that she was branded an enemy of the state. And as we know from the trailers, Sharon makes an appearance at some point in the series. So it's interesting that Sam's bringing her up now. And
Mhm.
then Bucky says, they're talking about the fact that there's more super soldiers and how did they come here, like how they get the serum and all that. And Bucky says, I think that there's someone that you should meet. And then we cut to Baltimore, Maryland,
Yeah.
where we meet a very interesting character by the name of Isaiah Bradley. So I have notes on Isaiah Bradley, but first let's just talk about what he says during the scene. He
Mm,
says that so obviously Isaiah and Bucky know each other because Isaiah was given the mission to hunt down and kill the Winter Soldier in 1951. Obviously, that ended up not happening, but he did say that he took half of Bucky's arm, and he makes a joke. He goes, I see you grew it back." Um, and Bucky's like, "Well, I'm not a killer anymore. That's not what I do." And Isaiah has this great line where he says, "You think you can wake up and decide what you want to be? Well, maybe you can for folks like you," which is a kind of another line drop regarding, this ongoing battle and theme of racism and themes of oppression and discrimination going on in this episode. All
right.
those glorious topics that we have been dealing of late in real
Hmm.
life, not just in the MCU,
Definitely.
and we
Super
find
relevant.
super, super relevant. I'm, like, wondering when they wrote these episodes because 'cause
It
I'm
was
like,
before
"Damn."
everything that happened this summer, so, like, and I think that goes to show that it has been around for the people that are saying, "Oh, racism's, like, a thing again." No, it's always been a thing,
Right,
and I think
exactly.
I don't think again, I don't think it's a coincidence that it just happens to be that they wrote this before the whole Black Lives Matter, George Floyd thing this summer. No, it's been around forever. They didn't foresee a huge global movement happening over the summer of 2020, but I don't think it's a coincidence. I think these are things that should be discussed regardless because they still go on, and we see it even later in that same scene when Sam is then pulled over or approached by the police officers.
Yeah, yeah, no, exactly. So
Hmm.
we find out that Isaiah was jailed for 30 years for being
Mm,
Captain America. Obviously, even though he fought for his country and did the job well, was given the super soldier serum, so we know that he was a super soldier. Um, I looked into his past in my Marvel encyclopedia. I'm the encyclopedia bitch, I guess. Um, and I found out that he was experimented on during World War II because obviously after they lost Cap, they immediately started going into finding out, who else they could give the serum
right,
to win the war. So he was the only survivor out of 300 to have received the serum and survived the war. Um,
wow,
so that's how he ended up getting the serum, and the only reason why he became the Captain America was because they were experimenting on African Americans. So it's not even like he got it in some glorious, how Steve was picked by um Stanley Tucci. His
right.
character's name is escaping me in this moment, but it wasn't some big initiation, graduation ceremony, whatever you want to call it. It
Right.
was
It was
non
like it's like a lab rat almost. It's like
Yeah,
we're doing the
exactly.
testing. Let's test on animals before humans, and that's that mindset. And that's terrible. It's obvious. It's terrible. And again, I think the themes of race in this episode were really what made it so not I shouldn't say appealing because it's not, but like intriguing. I guess to me that's the right word to use.
Yeah,
Um, because these things haven't really been addressed. I mean,
yeah.
there's a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of it in Black Panther, obviously, but like
Mhm.
there really hasn't been a ton elsewhere. So I think this is a really, really good way to bring it up, and to bring up how long it's been happening for. The fact that he's lived his whole life either behind bars or suffering from this trauma because of the sole reason of being black and being the one that they picked to experiment on. Like he didn't ask for it. And I think a
Mhm.
lot of this stuff is like I didn't ask for it, but I'm gonna, some people take on the job like John, just take it up and say, I'm going to do the best I can and I'm going to succeed. Some people don't want it and say, I can't deal with it. It kind of was Sam with the shield. It's like, they don't always choose their path. And some people don't have the ability to walk away or say no. And it's
Yeah,
sad. It really is.
truly, yeah. So then we have this what I'm calling the Black Lives Matter moment where
Right.
Bucky and Sam are arguing in the street and they get stopped by the Baltimore policemen, and all of their attention is directed at Sam. Obviously, due to the color of his skin, they think that he's causing an issue for Bucky. Bucky's trying to tell them, no, we're just arguing. We're not having an issue here. They're asking to see Sam's ID. They're not asking that of Bucky. And then finally says, do you even know who this is? And it's only the fact when they realize that his status of an Avenger is the thing that saves him in that
Yeah.
moment. Um, and then they end up realizing that, Sam's not even the issue here. It's Bucky who's missed one of his therapy sessions and there's a warrant out for his arrest. So, you know, a lot of people, I was just talking about this with my brother earlier because I just did I rewatched the episode quickly before we dove into this. And he was telling me
Hmm.
about how, people were so upset by this scene that they're bringing in race to the storyline. And I'm like, well, how you're just uncomfortable watching it on a TV show.
Right. And
Imagine living it in real life every day and being
the
in their shoes.
the
Imagine
thing
how
is, yeah.
uncomfortable that would be.
Yeah, the thing is, like, something like Star Wars, it says in the beginning, it's a galaxy far, far away. Marvel, it's set on our planet. There are other planets. Doctor Strange has his own, dimension going on, and Guardians of the Galaxy is somewhere else. The Thor stuff is elsewhere. But a lot of it, and most of it, is set in America. And,
Mm,
a lot of people love Winter Soldier and Civil War because they are so rooted in realism. It's not this like Guardians space stuff. It's like rooted in realism. And they're like, I love how real it felt. I love how it just felt like a spy movie, just it happened to be MCU. That's the same thing here. It's just because it's superheroes doesn't excuse it from dealing with the same issues that we face on our planet. And I think that's a brilliant choice, is to dig into these conversations and make these moments happen, because it it takes us out of that whole, oh, it's superhero fantasy, and says, wait, but they are in America. And I
mhm,
think that I honestly took such a 180 on this show, or 360. I don't know. The first episode, I was like, it's just all backstory, and the Cap thing is just, it's all about Cap, whatever. This episode, I was like, sold. I'm down. Like, I get it. I love it. Um, yeah, because of these conversations, because they're willing to actually make these characters human and set
mhm.
them in a realistic setting. And I really like that. I really do.
And it's important to always remember about this universe is like, yes, like it does seem like the fandom is an older demographic. We are two 20-year-old adults like who have a whole podcast dedicated to it. But it really is, they're still young boys and girls and people who look up to these characters and who start young and who read the comics and who look up to, they see the Avengers, they see Captain America, the Falcon, Tony Stark, they see them almost as role models. The amount of times younger kids see me with my Groot mask on and they just look up at me and say, I am Groot, like
Yeah,
it's just so adorable. And it's important that we address these issues for all the young African American kids who are growing up and who finally got to see Black Panther, who are watching Sam, become a prominent character in the MCU finally, and understanding that they're not just side characters in someone else's story. They
exactly.
can be their own heroes.
Hmm.
It's the same reason why Captain Marvel has the whole feminism theme ingrained in it. It's people walked away from that movie thinking that it was what it was, and I have a whole video dedicated on that on my YouTube channel. So if you want to check that out, I won't dive too much into it here because
Yeah,
I think I had to say everything that I said in that video. But it's important that these heroes give us something that the younger generation can look up to and can see themselves
absolutely.
in. And it's for all those boys and girls out there who feel alone and who don't feel like their own heroes. Now they have them here.
And not even see themselves in, but even for white kids to see themselves in Bucky, for Bucky being the one to be like, what does it matter? Like, what do you realize who this is? Like,
Mhm.
Bucky's the one who's like, "Do you realize who this is? Do you realize how ridiculous you're being right now?" And I think that's important too,
Right.
as a young kid to also realize what being an ally is, and what living in a circumstance with other people is. I think that that's sometimes a problem is people say, like, this is made for, people to really see themselves in these roles and characters, which it is, and it's important, but it's also important that other people who aren't necessarily relating to those characters can relate to the other bystanders and learn how to interact to those characters, if that makes sense. Does that make
Right.
sense? Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. Bucky
Hmm.
is a great example there of what we call using our white privilege for good. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, and granted, Bucky and Sam are not like this, but in that moment, you see Bucky immediately take Sam's side because it's not a question of sides. It's being
mhm.
like, "What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
Why are you asking to see, like, you know who this is?" And it shouldn't even have to come down to that. Like you said, it shouldn't have to be you're an Avenger, you get a get out of jail free card. Like, no,
Yeah.
like, just don't do it to anyone.
It's like, no, you should just treat people fairly and not judge them based off the color of their skin. Thank
You'd
you for
think people
coming to
would
my TED Talk.
people yeah, I was gonna say our episode was supposed to be trimmed, but I don't care that it's running over our time limit. I mean, I know you have a vaccine to get to, but hey, you know,
Listen, it can be listen,
these are
I'll
important things.
delay my vaccine if it means that I get to say
Yeah.
stand up for what's right here
Yeah,
and
we'll wrap up
say my
soon. Yeah, don't
piece.
worry. Alright, keep going with the
So
episode recap.
So then we cut to what I call the couples therapy scene, which I think is the best scene because so we cut to them in the police station. Bucky gets taken into, an interrogation room. Him and Sam actually by Bucky's therapist, and they, start really talking about their feelings and discovering what the root of the problem is, despite both of them not being one, not. Oh my goodness, what was that sentence? Despite either of them not wanting to be there in the
Mhm,
slightest. Um,
mhm,
you know, they have this staring contest moment, and finally, his therapist just says, "Just open yourself up. Just tell Sam what's bothering you." And he has this great monologue. Bucky has this great monologue about the shield, which damn near brought me to tears. I mean,
mhm.
I won't lie. I did shed a couple tears when he
Right.
said, he gave you that shield. He believed in you if he was wrong about you, then he was wrong about me. And you kind of understand in that moment why Sam giving the shield away has meant so much, has been hurting Bucky so much because he's only really relied on the fact because the only person who believed in him when he was at fault for doing whatever he did as the Winter Soldier for killing Stark's parents, the only person who was there for them and was willing to sacrifice everything for him was Steve. And I think that was a crucial part. Civil War was a crucial part, and Bucky being able to turn his life around and to put the Winter Soldier behind him and to, go on figuring out how to live his life without being a soldier. And so he always has trusted Steve's opinion and his judgment. And Steve made a judgment call in Endgame, which was I'm going to pass my legacy to Sam because Sam is a good, strong man who I know will represent this shield well and my legacy well. And they definitely had a conversation about it because I do believe that Bucky and Steve talked about the fact that Steve was going to go back in time to
Yeah.
live out his life after returning the stones. So
Mhm.
I'm willing to bet that they also talked about Sam too. Oh my goodness, I just hit my microphone. I'm willing to bet that they also talked about Sam in that moment
Yep.
and he's always trusted Steve. He's trusted Steve with his life. He was with him till the end of the line, baby. And if Steve was wrong about Sam, then what does that say about all the faith and all of the trust he's put in Bucky all these years?
Right.
And I was like, and the way
Yeah.
Sebastian Stan delivered that line, like the break in his voice and the tears swelling up in his eyes, I was like, "Oh baby, you need a hug and I'm here to give it to you. I'm first in line." I was really really
Yeah.
emotional. I was really really emotional. This is my favorite scene of the episode. I don't know if I mentioned that before
Yeah,
going
I
into
mean,
that huge
again,
spiel.
like, I think this episode had really, really, really good scenes, that progress the story, and progress these characters. I think this was a great one. I think the staring contest stuff, like some of it's like a little silly, but I think this
Yeah.
moment is really good. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think that some of the comedic moments, like, caught us at a weird time because I think they
Hmm.
were trying to break the tension, but I was like, "No, no, no, you don't have to, like, break it at all." Like, I wanna keep building on this. I really wanna get
Hmm.
to the root of their issues here because I think it's
The
important what gets said gets
Yeah,
said.
the legs thing is all too real though. Because in acting class, you know how many times I've had to like get closer to your scene partner, like look at them in the face, deliver the line to them,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm sitting,
yeah.
I'm like, my legs can only go this far. What do you want me to do? Do
Yeah,
you want me
yeah,
to
yeah,
like
yeah.
straddle? Do you want me to like sit on my legs so I can, it's always a funny. I appreciated that.
No, that was a cute moment.
Yeah.
So then Sam follows up with, "Maybe it's something that you or Steve will never understand, but don't you think I did what I did because I thought that it was right?"
Hmm.
And and that moment is when we gather, "Oh, Sam felt that he was unworthy of the shield, not just because he's not Steve Rogers, but because of the color of his skin, which broke my heart
Exactly.
equally as much as Sebastian Stan's line did." And
Yeah.
it was shattering because I'm like,
Yeah. I think
oh,
this therapy session, while they won't admit it, I think it really did help their bond. I
yeah,
think it really
I
did.
agree.
I think just doing that, and I don't think the doctor even foresaw that happening.
Yeah.
Um, which great job, lady. That was a good performance. That was a good good performance.
No, I agree.
Hope we see
So
more of her.
yeah, same. So then they agree to just go about their mission. They're going to do what they have to do together, and then they're going to go their separate ways and just never see each other ever again, because obviously it's whatever they're doing is not working. And right before Bucky leaves, he asks, "What was rule number 2 again?" And she reminds him that nobody gets hurt, and that's what we end on.
Hmm.
Um, which is interesting that she says that because in a way, 2 people were hurt in that room emotionally. So he's
Exactly.
so
It's
rule number
almost like
2
his
has already been.
fu. It's almost
Yeah.
like his fu to her on the way out the door. It's like, what was the rule? Don't hurt anyone. Okay, well,
What was that?
guess what just happened? Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. I'm
totally.
on the same wavelength. Yeah, that was a great moment. Yeah.
So then they walk out to greet a very obnoxious John Walker and Lamar Hoskins, sitting, leaning against a cop car, just taking advantage of that title. The way that he just like walked in and was like shaking hands with the cops and being like, "Oh, this
Yeah.
is all because of me because we have unfinished business. I'll see you guys outside." I was like, "Oh, I hate this guy. I
And that's another thing. And that's
hate."
another thing that brings you. That's another thing that brings us back to the scene with Sam and the policeman earlier. Is that Sam has been an Avenger for how long? 8 years, 9 years, whatever, and he is still getting pulled over by cops, being like, "Yo, you're sketchy." When John Walker has been capped for how long?
2 weeks.
Yeah, and yet he's walking up, shaking hit cops' hands and everything. It's a very interesting observation of privilege and the fact that this guy can just walk in there and all of a sudden he's everyone's hero and Sam's still trying to earn that. I mean, I loved this episode for all those reasons. I'm surprised I love this episode so much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
as
mean,
much
as
as John Walker annoys me, yeah, it's I
yeah,
know that's what you're about to say.
exactly. As much as
Yeah.
I hate John Walker, I did love this episode.
But
So
it's because he's so successful in doing that too. They wrote him well enough because they don't want you to root for John Walker. They don't want
I
you to
know.
be like Sam, Bucky. What the hell, guys? John Walker. They're not trying to do that. They're trying to make you frustrated, and they did a good job.
No, yeah, totally. So ultimately, Sam decides that they cannot work together just because of the fact that because John Walker and Battlestar are, affiliated with the US government and, have to follow protocols and authorization and, get all of these okays from top people. Since him and Bucky are freelance, they ultimately just shouldn't work together because it just like it wouldn't work out.
Right.
Sam and Bucky have way more jurisdiction to go about and do what they got to
Uh-huh.
do to save the day. To which John Walker responds, Well, then just do me a favor and stay the hell out of my way. And
And
to
that's
that, I
that's where, that's where we're like, okay, yep, you're a douche.
for any of you who are just listening to the audio and not watching the YouTube, I just cranked my hand as if it were a machine and only my middle finger went up and then I cranked it back down, similar to what Peter Quill does in Guardians of the Galaxy when he gets captured
I was
on
gonna throw trivia on it. I was gonna throw trivia at you and ask you who it was that did that in the
Xandar. Oh
MCU,
my
but you
gosh.
knew.
No, of course I knew. Guardians trivia, this girl
Yeah.
nailing it.
Yeah, I
But I
got a whole
did.
book of trivia right here, so I'm ready to test you. One of our episodes, if we ever have off time, I might give you some trivia, Kels. Who knows?
Oh my god, you should. I literally wait, Dill. I literally sit and I rewatch when I'm rewatching the movies because my mom just got into the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So I've been rewatching all the movies with her. She's very, very funny. We just watched Age of Ultron. To
Oh,
which
that's why you texted me. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I'm literally rewatching the movies and I'm like taking mental notes of things just in case I'm ever in a situation where I'm like in a hardcore Marvel trivia scenario. I'm literally like memorizing. I'm like, what planet is that? Okay, got it. It's in the back of my head. Who's her name? Got it.
Yeah.
So I'm
All right,
preparing.
so let's talk about this final moment then.
Okay, well, first, there's two final
Right.
moments that we're just gonna touch on real quick. Basically, all that happens in Slovakia with the flag smashers is one of the flag smashers sacrifices himself so that their plane can leave. End
Mhm.
of scene. Didn't really need that scene. That as soon as that guy said, "I'll hold him off for you," I knew he was dying. I didn't need that moment. Cut back to Bucky and Sam. Bucky says, when Isaiah looked at me and said, "Your people," he was referring to Hydra in that moment. So obviously we need to, go back to my ties being with Hydra. And Sam's like, "Oh my God, no, you can't be serious. All right, I guess we're going to see him. I guess we're going to see Zemo." To then which we cut to Zemo sitting in his jail cell. We zoom in on him through the lens of a security camera and the episode's over.
Yeah.
So I have a few more things to talk about before we
Um,
go. But you
really
don't have
quickly,
any Easter eggs, do you?
I do have a few, but
Oh, okay.
right before we get into that, I just want to say, um, did I forget what I was gonna say?
Oh boy.
Oh, I had something really good too.
Was it about the flag smashers? Was it
No.
about Zemo? I'll just
Yeah.
I'll just ramble. It was about Zemo. Did you rewatch Civil War?
No.
Oh.
I'm trying. It'll come to me eventually. If not, I'll. Oh. I was gonna talk about okay. I was gonna talk about the episode itself in the context of the grand scheme. I think as an episode, this was really solid. I still think my qualm with the show, in general, is that I feel like this is just a big movie that they found stopping points to splice it together. Whereas
I agree.
the thing with the series is that every episode, while part of a whole, kind of stands on its own, has its own arc. And I think this did to an extent. It's them meeting up together, and then you see the flag smashers, and then it ends with them wanting to go Zemo. There's a beginning, middle, and end, but at the same time, WandaVision was so uh, perfectly structured in terms of episodes. It was very clear each episode had its own identity, its own story. It did make up a grander whole, but it was very much like, and I think that's because obviously it had an idea to go sitcom to sitcom. It worked very well in its favor. Whereas this
Sure.
one, I'm still like not getting the same moments like WandaVision where it's like the next episode ends and it's like, oh, I gotta see what happens next. Like again, I like Zemo more than you. Obviously, we saw in our villains ranking, but it's not enough for me to jump out of my chair going, holy shit, I need to see what happens next. It's not the Quicksilver moment. It's not the everything turning to
Mm,
color and her getting pregnant and you being like, whoa, what's gonna happen in the next one? It's not even the end where Agatha Harkness says, "You are the Scarlet Witch," credit drop. It's
mhm.
not that. And the thing is, like the last episode with Captain America, fake Cap coming in and being like, "Smile, wink," and then this one with Zemo. It's a good way of setting up what's happening next, but it doesn't have me necessarily like begging for more. It feels like I said last week, like you're taking a pause button and pausing the movie, and then we'll watch the rest of it next week. And then next week, oh, we're pausing it again. We'll watch the rest next week. That's what it feels like now. So while I like this episode a lot more than the first one, I like this episode. I think as a whole, this series I think would be better binged all at once than the episodicness. I think the episodicness isn't working as well for this show as it did for WandaVision. But that's just my one critique of all. Otherwise, this episode for me was super strong. Kelsey, continue with what you were going to say.
I was going to say I completely agree with you, Dale. That is like verbatim a thought that I had. I was like, wow, it's literally just like they paused a movie and
Right.
right at the end, right as we're
Hmm.
getting into like the second act almost.
Hmm.
Yeah, this one's definitely moving more linear than WandaVision, so it's like a little less exciting. But I will say that part of my theory about Zemo kind of makes me excited for his return. And I know that doesn't make any sense because I did rank him so low in the villains ranking, but that's really only because I didn't understand what he wanted in Civil War. That was really the big reason why.
Would you rank him like 27 out of 30 or something like that, or
Yeah, something like
26?
that. I think he might have even been like 28. I can't remember. But actually I have my list right here.
Well, don't
Uh
spoil it. Let him watch it.
oh,
Let
okay.
him go watch the episode. Yeah, go watch our 2.5 hour episode. Trust me, if you put it on 1.5 speed, it's only an hour and a half long, and it's worth the watch. Just to
Yeah.
see me freak out over Mickey Rourke's Whiplash character.
Yeah. So anyway, so do you want to get into Easter eggs or do you want to hear my theories?
Yeah, I have like two.
Okay.
One, there's my notes. One, Bucky Barnes.
Yeah.
Where is he from? He's from America.
Yeah, last time I checked.
Okay, so The Hobbit was originally published in 1937, as he
Uh-huh.
says. He says he read it in 1937,
Uh-huh.
but it wasn't published in the U.S. till 1938. So either this is an error on the screenwriting team.
Okay.
This is either just a faulty memory and he has the wrong year, or he's just so eager to read The Hobbit that he literally got a copy abroad sent to him in 1937. So I just thought it was funny because he just say 1937, and he technically wouldn't have been able to read it till 1938, but maybe he has some secret connection to get that Hobbit copy a year early in America. Books came out different times then. Movies kind of do that too, but not to the extent of a whole year. Okay, big thing I want to talk about
Okay.
is this character of um, Elijah Bradley,
Okay.
and that is Isaiah, the teenager who's in the house with Isaiah, who lets
Mhm.
him in. Elijah Bradley,
Mhm.
Elijah Bradley is Eli, and in the comics, he is one of the founding members and the leader of the Young Avengers, and his name is Patriot.
Mm.
So I don't know if this is setting him up to be the leader of this Young Avengers. I think it's interesting because last show, WandaVision, we got two new kid characters who, by the time we see them in the future, because we know they're still alive and out there somewhere with Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness, we're probably going to find a way to get the kids back. If those kids and Elijah Bradley, Eli Bradley, and then any other kids, Morgan Stark, Ant-Man's daughter, Cassie Lang, maybe we could be seeing a potential Young Avengers team up, which might be cool.
Oh, okay.
Because we've been getting a lot of great kids recently. Cassie Lang aged, so she's probably about the same age as Elijah Bradley. They were both looked about older teenagers. They weren't kids. And then Wiccan and Speed, aka Billy and Tommy, are kids, but again, we know they age quickly. And Morgan Stark, she's gonna be smart. We know when she grows up, so we might be seeing a Young Avengers team up. Obviously, none of this is confirmed because they already have 40 movies to get to before that that they've announced. But who knows? Maybe this is the Young Avengers coming to fruition.
Maybe.
Maybe.
That's
Those were just
exciting.
my two little Easter eggs. I mean, he's not really an Easter egg; it's a character. But I dug deeper into the character of Eli, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool.
You
Young
know what?
Avengers, maybe."
I love that you dug deeper into Eli because I really only dug deep into Isaiah, everything that I could
Yeah.
find on
So
him.
go ahead with
So, thank you.
anything else you have with your big theory you were talking about, or not theory, but some of the puzzle pieces you put together, and then we'll wrap it up because I got to
Great.
be somewhere.
So I just wanted to look a little deeper into John Walker
Hmm.
using my Marvel encyclopedia. And what I found was is that he in the comics he actually does receive a version of the super serum, and he does this by making a deal with this antagonist named Power Broker. So he makes a deal with this guy in order to become the super patriot, is what he's referred to as in the
Right.
comics when he takes up the mantle as Captain America after Steve
Yeah.
retires. Basically, this power broker character, aka his real name is Curtis Jackson. He runs a company called Power Broker Incorporated, and basically, it's just a front that sells superhuman strength to his clients. So he has a whole network of people that he's been selling this serum to. So he teams up with this man named Dr. Carl Malice, who invented the super serum. He is like he's a biologist who specializes in like genealogy and all that kind of stuff. So he kind of invents his own take on the super serum that Cap got in the 40s. Cut to Battlestar, the notes that I took on him, he also got his super strength from Power Broker as well. And when John Walker took up, oh, you'll never believe this. I literally read this and I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I said it out loud to myself. When John Walker takes up the mantle of being Captain America, Lamar Hoskins kind of creates this group of his kind of sidekick like characters called the the Bold Urban Commandos, aka the Buckies, because it's BUC
Oh.
keys, the Buckies.
Hmm.
And I'm like,
Okay.
wow, they're just really taken from Steve's whole identity, aren't they? Aren't they? Um, I dove into Isaiah's past a little bit. So basically, I wanted to bring up this power broker and Dr. Carl Malice guy because I believe that they might be the people behind why all of these super soldiers have come about. You know, we still
Hmm.
don't know why that is. And it's
Yeah.
really important. I know we focus on a lot of other things during this episode, but the really big question we should be asking from here on out are where are these super soldiers coming from?
So you don't think it's Zemo?
Well, listen, Zemo's whole mission, if to my understanding, wasn't his whole mission to get rid of the super
To
soldiers?
get rid of the good ones, I think.
So
So
he
I think
wanted
because
an
he
army of
twisted
evil
Bucky.
ones.
Yeah, he didn't kill Bucky. He wanted to twist Bucky to be evil and tap back into it. I don't know if it was for his intention of like I don't know. I have to rewatch Civil War. I said this on the villains ranking. It's a little misty because there's so much that happens in that movie.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I think we'll find out next week exactly what Zemo's purpose in the show is. But yeah,
Well,
I was assuming he'd be
I
behind
have
it
a
just because he's the big
prediction.
bad. Okay.
I have a prediction for what it might be. Sorry to cut you off, Dill, but
No, I didn't have anything left to
I
say
can
anyway. I was
feel
just
you
rambling.
wanting me to wrap up, so I'm trying to
No, no,
do the
it's
best
not
that I
for me. It's
can.
for you. It's whatever however much time you've got.
Right, gotta get that shot, later
Oh,
today.
mine's in this arm because I'm a lefty, so I put it in my right arm.
You're a lefty?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
learn new things about you every day.
yeah.
So I rewatched, the end of Civil War because I really wanted to get to the bottom of
Left hand, left hand.
oh, he's proving it to us, ladies and gentlemen. Look at him go. What's he writing? Is it his name? It's Dylan. Yep. Okay, thank you so much for that, Dill. I was just taking your word for it. I never doubted that you were a lefty, but thank
Well,
you for the, confirmation.
yeah. Well, some people will ask, "Do you have brown eyes?" And I'll be like, I'll try to prove them wrong with anything, even if it's very, very plain, obvious fact.
Thank you, Dale. So anyway, like I was saying, I did rewatch Civil War because I really just wanted to find out for myself what his whole purpose was in that movie. And he says some really vague things. He says he made a promise and that he lost everyone. And I think he blames the super soldiers for his issues. We also find out, I didn't know this, that he was Sokovian. He's from Sokovia.
Yeah.
But
Hmm.
he doesn't even hate the Avengers for Age of Ultron because he says, "Oh, that place was a shithole before you guys even came up." I don't give a shit that that place is like a crater now. Uh, the only reason why I've been coming after you is because I made a promise and I lost everyone. So I feel like he's possibly blaming the super soldiers for everything that happened. And when so now cut back to present day when we just saw the Falcon and Winter Soldier trailer for the first time, we hear him say, my work, I'm going to finish my work right where I left off, or whatever he says. And I think that his mission is to go after and kill every single last one of them.
So he's gonna team up with them.
So I think it might be a team up situation, which I think would be a really cool plot twist.
Or it could be like a Hannibal Lecter thing where it's like he still
Oh,
can't leave the jail cell, but he almost kind of like tells, he's the villain but behind the bars. Because we know they're gonna go talk to him next week. It'll be interesting to see if they can get him out, or if he'll escape, or if he's just gonna be kind of like being a villain from behind bars. It'll be really interesting. I'm really interested to see what they do with Zemo here because I'm very intrigued. I know you were not the biggest fan of him, but I'm glad you're intrigued too.
no,
I
I'm
am.
intrigued now for
Yep.
sure, now that I've done some of my
Mm-hmm.
research. I would also like
Right.
to point out that even though I brought up these two characters from the comics, Power Broker and Dr. Carl Malice, that they might not be the ones involved in making the super serum because, really quickly, Isaiah does mention that while he was in jail, he was experimented on and they took his blood. So they could have
Mm,
just been making the serum out of his blood for years and years and years.
maybe.
That was just a very quick detail that we got in his whole monologue.
Yeah.
Um, so
Lots of
oh,
great stuff in this episode.
last
Yeah,
thing I
go ahead.
wanted to bring up, I'm so sorry, but there was a number that I had to address.
Oh,
Um,
Numbers Girl.
Numbers
Numbers.
Girl
Yay.
strikes again.
Mhm.
She's back for round 2. So the last frame that we see of the show is a zoom in of Zemo via security lens, and there's a number on the screen. It is 2187. So
Okay.
obviously, I had to look into this, and there is an Earth 2187, just like I brought up last week. And basically, all that the major significance that happened on this Earth was that um it destroyed someone destroyed this superflow concept, and basically all superflow is an informational space between universes. So I feel like they're keeping this idea of the multiverse alive through numbers, I
Yeah, they're planting
think.
the little seeds. Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about Falcon the Winter Soldier episode 2, The Star
Yeah.
Spangled Man, man.
So are you a fan of this episode then? You're a
I was.
fan?
No, I'm a big
Okay, cool.
fan. I'm
Cool,
excited.
cool.
I also, while we were dealing with tech issues and going back and forth between restarting and doing all that jazz, I
Yeah.
watched a TikTok where one of the writers says that he is most excited for people to see episode 5. So
Oh, okay,
I'm
cool.
now excited to see that one as well.
Well, we gotta get through 3, 4 first.
Yep.
Kelsey, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Kelsey A. Kilpatrick. You can find me on TikTok at Koz13, KOZ13, or you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, Koz Productions, where you can see my video on Captain Marvel.
Hell yeah, and it's in the description as well, and we tagged it earlier. You can find me at Dylan_Randazzo, at TikTok, at Dylan Randazzo 417, and here at the Dill Pickle Movie Network. You got cool things coming this week. I have a video coming out soon for my first episode of Picture This, which is my Oscars show, where I dive deep with Chadwick Webb into a year of Oscars history. So we are going to be tackling 1994, which is Four Weddings and a Funeral, Quiz Show, Forrest Gump, Pulp Fiction, and The Shawshank Redemption. We were talking all 5 movies. You'll get it either tomorrow or Wednesday, whenever we get the edit done and running. And then the first Friday of next month, being April, I believe that's April 2nd, you will be getting the first episode of April for the Great American Film Off. I forgot to post a poll on Friday, so I will be doing that today, Monday. You will be seeing a poll on my Instagram. So if you're listening to this on Monday, go to my Instagram right now, type my name on Instagram, you'll find me, and you can respond to that poll, and we'll read your answers on the show. All right, until next week, I'm Dylan,
And I'm Kelsey.
and we'll see you then.